The Pemi Loop, commonly known as the Pemi Loop, is one of the White Mountains' classic hard-hitting circuits, a rugged 32-mile loop that traverses along exposed ridgelines and knocks off multiple 4,000-foot peaks. It's stunning, remote, and seriously demanding. Plan carefully, respect the weather, and don't underestimate it. Hopefully, this video can serve as a comprehensive guide in helping you plan your trip to do the Pemi Loop. Let's get into it. So I just got back from hiking the Pemi Loop over the course of 3 days, and it was one of the best hikes I've done in New England by far. I had such a good time. It was difficult, but so worth it and so rewarding in the end. To see the views from Falconia Ridge, the sun setting on one side, the moon rising on the other side, and just having the perfect weather along the way made it all worth it. While my trip was successful, I did barely any planning. That's kind of the way I like to do adventures, is do as minimal planning as possible, but I know that's not for everyone, and there are a few things that I wish I knew before doing the hike, so I'm going to get into that now, and we'll run through every aspect of what this hike has to offer. So just a quick couple facts from a glance. This is a 30 to 32 mile hike, although on my old trails I clocked in at 34 miles, so it depends where you go. If you go to certain out and back or viewpoints, if you go to certain campsites that are off the trail, if you are filming it like me and you're walking back and forth between the camera, or you're parking outside of the parking lot because the parking lot is full. So know that you're going to do anywhere between 30 to 34, 35 miles. The typical elevation gain is between 9,000 and 10,500 feet. This is not something to look past. It is a lot of up and down. Your legs will feel it. It will be a burn, but trust me, it is worth it when you get to the summits. The typical duration of the hike can last from 1 day all the way to 3, 4, or even 5 days. 1 day I would reserve for very elite athletes. Most of the time it's people doing fast packing or trail running where they're going for 18 hours in one go. That's not necessarily how I like to hike. I like to take my time a bit more, enjoy the scenery, get some cool videos and photos, and I don't need to be pushing myself to the absolute extremes to enjoy the hike. And I think most people don't really fall into that category. So I did it over the course of 3 days. I started on a Saturday afternoon, actually. I only left Connecticut, where I'm based, on Saturday morning and arrived at the hike at 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. So I started immediately then, hiked 6 miles in, slept for the night, hiked 19 miles the next day, which actually I feel like I pushed myself a little bit too much during that day. Regardless, made it to the campsite and then hiked out 6 miles the next day. So yeah, anything from 2 to 4 days is a pretty good, comfortable stretch for doing this hike. The hike starts and finishes at the Lincoln Woods Trailhead. This is on the New Hampshire Highway 112, but you can just search it on maps or Google or find it pretty much anywhere. There is a parking lot there with a standard daily fee of $5 per day if you are lucky enough to get a spot. Obviously, it depends when you go, what season you go. I went in the high peak season of fall, so there were a million tourists there. The parking lot was full. The streets lining the highway outside of the parking lot was also full, so I had to park like a quarter mile down the road. And it was funny, when I got back to my car, my one was like the only car there that was miles away because I finished up on a Monday, so the weekend cleared out. But yeah, if you get there nice and early, you'll probably get a spot, and depending on the season that you go in. Know that there aren't any special permits required to do this hike. You don't need to apply for anything. You can just show up and go. Those are my favorite kind of hikes because you don't need much planning. You can just go and be in nature. Most of the backcountry campsites are on a first come, first served basis, so there's no like reservation or anything like that either. Okay, so let's get onto the route, what you will actually be hiking. The Pemi Loop is actually not a single name for the trail. It's a combination of different trails that make up the loop, all of these being within the Pemi Wilderness area. The standard loop traverses major features including Mount Flume, Mount Liberty, Mount Lincoln, Mount Lafayette and the Falconia Ridge, Garfield, Gale Head, the South Twin, Mount Bond, and then all the way back to Lincoln Woods. This route usually includes about 8 of New Hampshire's 4,000 footers, so it's pretty cool to check that off your list as well. There is a big debate on whether to do the hike clockwise or anti-clockwise. I decided to do it anti-clockwise and just go against the grain. Most people do it clockwise, but I wanted to plan my trip so that I would be on Falconia Ridge at sunset on my second day, just because I wanted to get some cool photos and videos. If this isn't your priority, maybe going clockwise is the way to go for you. There's a lot more guides going clockwise than anti-clockwise, but I mean, you're gonna experience the same features going either way. Going clockwise, you're gonna experience a much steeper climb quicker, getting up to the Falconia Ridgeline area. If you decide to go the anti-clockwise way like I did, you're gonna do a much longer walk following the river in Lincoln Woods until you then start to slowly head up to the mountains on the other side of the loop. Moving on to the best time to go and the best conditions. The best season to go is usually from late July to early October. I went this past weekend, which was the 4th to the 6th of October, and the weather was pristine. I couldn't have asked for better weather. Obviously, this is in the White Mountains though, where the weather can get pretty chaotic and unpredictable. So make sure that you check the weather conditions always before you go, especially in the White Mountains. And especially if you're going in winter or the colder seasons, or even in summer, storms can roll in there and the wind can change in an instant. A lot of the trail traverses alpine sections where it's not protected by trees as well, so the wind can be whipping up from the cliffs below. So you always want to be careful and make sure that you are doing your due diligence. Obviously, predicting the weather is something I can't do in this video, but make sure you check that before you go. They also have a ranger hut down at the parking lot, so you can go in there and speak to a ranger and see what the weather's looking like for the next couple days. If you do decide to go in winter, the route becomes a lot more technical and relies on more alpine climbing and mountaineering techniques. This is something I hope to do in the future, maybe this winter, but yeah, obviously you need to be a pretty advanced hiker and outdoorsman and know all your mountaineering gear and terminology and the things to do to survive on a mountain in winter. I don't have all that experience just yet, so I'm not going to give you any advice on that. Go speak to some people that do have that if that is something that you're looking to do. Okay, let's move on to some of the logistics and planning for the trip. As I mentioned, the Lincoln Woods Trailhead is where you are going to be starting the hike. It is a pretty well-kept little section. It reminded me a lot of the quality of a national park. There were bathrooms over there, there was a really nice parking lot, there was a ranger station, there were welcome signs and maps and a cool suspension bridge that you could go see the river. So New Hampshire's done a great job with this. But like I said, make sure you show up super early if you are planning to hike in a peak season so you can secure your parking spot. Moving on to huts and shelters, the Appalachian Mountain Club does have a few huts in the Pemawasset Wilderness, which offer food and bunk beds if that's something that you're looking for. But note that this is something that you will have to reserve if you are looking to stay in these huts. So check the AMC's websites to find more information on that. When it comes to camping and backcountry campsites, this is where it is all on a first come, first served basis. There are obviously a limited number of campsites, but you can find little patches of dirt in the woods where there are flat ground, where I have come to learn that this is called stealth camping, where you aren't necessarily camping in a designated camp spot, but you found a little section next to the trail where you can set up a tent and set up camp for the night. Obviously, you want to follow the general outdoor safety rules and the rules that the Appalachian Mountain Club sets out as well, like not making fires in alpine areas and carrying your waste out and not trashing the place, and also storing your food properly because there are bears around. So either you have a bear canister or you hang your food up in a tree away from camp as well. So I did want to get into a little bit more detail on the camping situation. So here we have a nice topographic map of the Pemi Loop. So I'm just going to go through and show you where I camped, where there are possible campsites along the way, just so you can plan your routes a little bit better as well. So obviously starting down here at the parking lot, I decided to go the anti-clockwise way. Walking along this trail next to the river here, there wasn't really much option.
but there were some options like right as you hit the point where you start to go up into the mountains. I think 2 people had camp set up there, and yeah, there was a really nice little spot next to the stream over here, so that's a really good option if you're starting late in the day and you just want to camp out there. I started at like 3 p.m. and I decided to camp up around the section over here. It's probably this one right here actually. So that's a good spot if you are looking for something. But if you did start earlier in the day and you wanted to get more distance on that first day, you can keep going all the way up to the point where you reach Mount Lafayette, and there's actually a full proper campsite there as well. There's also a shelter, so yeah, you can check that out, and that'll definitely be a good option for you. A lot of people stay in that section as well. As you go along, there are a couple more camp spots, not campsites, just little patches of dirt next to the trail that you can find here and there. This map has been pretty good at locating the campsites along the trail. I definitely spotted more than they put on this map over here, but I'll leave this in the description for you anyway, just because it is super helpful. But yeah, I saw more than there is available here. Obviously you have the Trailhead hut, which you can book a place to sleep at if you want to. And then I think there's also some campsites around that area as well. Then as you keep going over, there's the Garfield shelter and camping area, so there's definitely campsites over there. More campsites over here, but pretty much anything from Garfield by this last campsite over here, all the way along Falconia Ridge, there's not really anything until you get to the Liberty Springs camping area, which is where I stayed on my second night. There's a couple of like little dirt spots along the trail over here right before Liberty Springs on the Appalachian Trail, but it's nothing great. I would just push through to Liberty Springs, but know that that is the paid one where it's $15 a night. And then yeah, after that I didn't see too much. I mean, I also wasn't super looking out for campsites along this part of the trail, but there definitely are options. So if you are going the clockwise way and you start late in the day, there are spots to camp along here, but at that point I would just push through to the Liberty Springs campsite if you are starting earlier in the day. So yeah, that's my quick little update on the camping areas.
One of the big things I wanted to talk about is water. Water is life. You need water on this trail. It is very physically demanding, and if you don't have water, you will struggle. There was a big section of the trail on the east side where there wasn't water for a long time. This summer in New England has been particularly dry, and so there was a real lack of flowing streams available on the trail. Again, it depends what time of year you go. If you're going in the spring, you'll probably have plenty of water and you won't have a problem. If you're going in the winter, there'll be snow and ice and streams running through as well, I'm sure. But for me, going in fall, I had a little bit of trouble with water on the second day. I did manage to push through and reach the mountain hut where there was fresh water. So there were a couple streams along the way. Obviously, when you're starting out, you're right next to the river, so you have that. If you have your water filters with you, you should be fine drinking that water, as well as any streams you find along the way. Yeah, not much on the west side, especially when you are at the higher elevations, but when you duck down to the first hut, which is pretty much all the way on the other side of the loop on the north end, at Trailhead Hut, there was a tap with running water that was already filtered and good to drink, so that was really nice. It almost felt too easy and felt like cheating after having to filter my water out from streams and find it wherever I could. Then going along the trail further, again in the anti-clockwise direction, there were a couple other streams along the way, and then there was a spring coming straight out of the rock at the Liberty Springs campsite, which was about 0.3 miles from Mount Liberty. This campsite was also really cool. There were wooden platforms. It was very well kept. There were somewhat facilities like a tented area where you could make and cook food. Do know that this campsite is $15 a day, so make sure you bring some cash with you. It might also come in handy if you go to the Galehead huts and if you want to get some baked goods or brownie or any drinks that they have as well. But yeah, for the most part, everything was free along the trail. There were more than enough backcountry stealth camping campsites as well. I didn't have a problem with finding space on the trail at all, even when it was peak season. Bear in mind that I started on a Saturday, so I camped on Saturday and Sunday night, and I was going anti-clockwise, like against the traffic basically. So that was another reason why I chose to go that way, just so there would be less people where I was camping on the Saturday. When it comes to the actual terrain, this trail is very rocky and can be kind of technical in some places. There was a certain stretch that was very steep where you needed to use your hands and kind of like rock scramble up or down depending on which way you're going. That section was relatively short, but a lot of the trail was still very rocky. There were some steep areas. I would suggest having hiking poles if you do have them. I didn't have any because I was using my tripod as a hiking pole. It is just what I do because I'm filming as well. But yeah, definitely recommended to have that. Whether you're going up or downhill, you will need it at certain points. You can wear hiking boots if you want to. I think this is a personal preference. I always hike with trail running shoes just because I find them a lot more comfortable and flexible. I can feel the ground and the rock beneath my feet a lot easier. I know some people prefer more support and sturdiness around their ankles, especially if you're carrying heavier weight as well. But obviously you want to make sure that your pack is as light as it can possibly be. I have made another video where I go through everything that I had in my pack on this hike as well. So if you want to see that in more detail, I'll link it down in the description, so go check that out. But yeah, all comes down to personal preference in the end. You will be fine if you just want to wear trail runners, but most people were wearing like sturdier hiking boots as well. When it comes to a suggested itinerary, there are so many different ways you can do this hike, whether it's clockwise, anti-clockwise, 1 day, 2 day, 3 days, 4 days. It's, again, all comes down to personal preference. Again, what I did is hike anti-clockwise 6 miles in. I slept at a backcountry campsite just off of the river. Then second day, I hiked from that point, again, all the way anti-clockwise to the Lincoln Springs campsite, about 19 miles, and then woke up there and hiked back to my car another 6 miles on the third day. I would probably do it a little bit differently if I had to now. No brainer, start the hike earlier on the first day instead of at 3 p.m., but just life situations meant that I had to start then. So yeah, I would honestly break it up into 10 to 12 miles a day. I think that would be relatively easier. It would be enjoyable. You can take your time. You wouldn't have to push yourself too hard, and you would cover a good amount of ground as you go around the loop. I think it would be even cool to stay at the Galehead AMC hut one of the nights. It was quite an experience walking in there and just seeing all the tables lined up and all the hiking and outdoor books on the bookshelf, people grabbing water, all the muffins and baked goods and bunk beds. It felt like a kid's like camp in a way, and I was like, oh, this reminds me of when I was younger and I went to camp at school, and it was pretty cool. And I was like, oh, I wish I knew this existed and I could have had this experience staying here. It would be pretty cool. Not to mention being able to connect with other hikers as well and share that experience. I'll leave a couple different itinerary suggestions in the description as well if you're interested in that, just so you can get a feel for what possibilities are out there. Like I said, I've already made a separate video on all the gear that I took for this 3-day hike, so go check that out if you want to. But just to run it through real quick, here is some of the basic gear that you'll need for your hike. Obviously, a pack, 20 to 50 liters, depending on if you're doing a day hike or doing a multi-day, 3, 4, 5-day hike. Footwear, obviously your hiking boots or trail runners. Insulation, like a lightweight down jacket or a fleece base layer. Something that's rainproof, like a rain jacket if there is rain expected, or what I did if there isn't rain expected, having like an emergency poncho or something that just folds down really small that'll keep you dry if in the worst case there is rain that comes about. Making sure you have your trekking poles, headlamp with extra batteries, map, or compass or GPS device with a GPX tracker, something that's going to allow you to navigate in the backcountry where you won't always have service. This is something I want to speak about as well, but we'll get to that. Something that allows you to filter water and also hold that water, so water filtration system, water bottles, water bladder, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you have enough food. Around 2,000 calories a day is probably the minimum that you will want to have for doing something like this. You'll probably burn way more than 2,000 calories a day, but make sure you have a minimum of 2,000 calories a day. A small little emergency kit with first aid and band-aids and all that good stuff. Obviously a tent and sleeping bag and everything you need to sleep and camp out. Some cooking equipment. I just have a small little jet boil stove with a propane tank that I light up, and it's very small and compact and easy to bring along. I think that's all the gear, but again, if I missed anything, go check out that separate video. Okay, going on to navigation and apps. I used AllTrails to navigate. I've been using AllTrails for the longest time. I'm a big fan of AllTrails. I think they do amazing work and making the outdoors accessible to a lot of people. I wish that they would sponsor me. That would be amazing, but they don't. But yeah, AllTrails is cool because you can save the trails. You actually don't need to pay for it to still use the app and like the backcountry services per se. If you save the trails to a list, you can still use it. So that's a hack. You just can't see like all the extra features of like the topography and the 3D scans and all that, but you don't really need that if you're just tracking the route and trying to see if you're staying on course. So that's what I did throughout the whole hike. I also did download a GPX file. So a GPX file is basically just like an offline GPS file, if you want to call it that. And then I used an app called GPX Viewer. So in the instance or worst case where AllTrails just didn't load for me at all, or I couldn't see anything on AllTrails, I could still use the GPX to stay on path and see where I needed to go. Luckily, this trail is very well maintained, very well marked, and it's pretty easy to see where you're going. So I didn't have any problem with that. You probably could do it without any navigation apps, but yeah, something like AllTrails makes it super easy where you can just get up and go and like not have to think about it too much. So that's what I use, that's my suggestion. But yeah, obviously do your planning before. If you can have a physical map as well, it's cool. It's always useful in case your phone dies or for some wild reason you aren't able to navigate or find the path at all. When it comes to food and resupply, like I said, make sure you have some high caloric foods that are nice and lightweight and easy to carry with you. I like having dehydrated meals. They are slightly on the more expensive side per meal. I mean, I guess it's actually cheaper than if you go eat out. It's like between $9 and $13, so it's not terrible, and it's super convenient. It's very high calorie packed foods in a very small space, and they are super lightweight, and honestly they don't taste too bad. I enjoy a lot of the meals, sometimes more than the meals I cook myself, which might be saying something, but I think they do a really good job these days. It's not what it used to be, or from stories I've heard of people that had dehydrated meals like 20 years ago. So they've got pretty good at doing that. But there aren't any resupply points along the trail. There's nowhere that like you can just hop off and go to a store if you need to. So make sure you have all the food you need with you for the couple days you'll be on trail. Like I said, there is some light food at the AMC hut, but you don't want to rely on that as your main meal if you don't have to. Emergency and communication. I always make sure that I have my Garmin InReach Mini with me, which fortunately I haven't had to use, but this allows me to text people if I need to in the backcountry and I don't have any phone signal. It's essentially a mini satellite phone that connects to your phone and then you can use to message people. You can send out a distress SOS signal if something really goes badly, and then the wilderness rangers and helicopters will come in to save you if that's what's required. But yeah, hopefully you need to use any of that at all. When it comes to phone signal on the trail, there were a couple spots where there was phone signal. I got signal maybe 2 or 3 times along the way, and I would just feel my phone coming through with a million messages every now and then on the trail. So yeah, don't bank on having phone signal, but there are a couple spots if you really need to. I believe I got signal for a second on Mount Lincoln, and then also on Mount Flume for a second. But it also depends on your carrier, and I'm sure the weather and all that kind of stuff as well. So don't bank on having phone signal. Tell the people you love that you are doing this, that you're going to be out there for a couple days, and they can expect to hear from you at this day, and if they don't, then they can search out a search party. But yeah, just be smart about it, be safe, make sure you have backups for emergency. It is a very popular trail, so you shouldn't have any worries if something does go wrong. There are usually quite a lot of people on the trail. I passed countless people as I was walking, so everyone is very friendly and helpful. I'm sure if there was an emergency situation or you needed to contact someone or get in touch with the ranger, there would be help around if you needed to. I think that pretty much covers everything I can think of off the top of my head right now. I hope that covered everything that you might need to know. If you have any other questions or super specific questions, please let me know down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer you and help out wherever I can. Yeah, pick an itinerary that works for you. Choose a time, choose a day, check the weather, make sure you're good to go. Tell the people you love that you're doing this, and then go hit the trail and enjoy it. It is a very difficult but very rewarding hike, and yeah, I hope this video helps you to get out there and get out into the wilderness. If you haven't seen the video of me hiking the actual trail, I'll link that down below as well. It was so beautiful, so make sure you go check that out, share it with your friends, use it for inspiration if you need to, and subscribe to the channel for more outdoor hiking, adventure, films, and tutorials to come. I appreciate you watching, and I hope to see you out there on the trail. I'll see you soon. Bye.